This episode is made possible by our sponsor, Landmark College, the college for students who learn differently, offering comprehensive supports for students with ADHD and other learning differences, both on campus and online. Learn more at lcdistraction.org.
If you take the death row population in the United States, 80% of that comes from the foster youth program. So
80%. Wait a minute. Say that 80%?
80 of the foster youth on death row. Former foster youth on death row. 80%. So it's like, let's throw them in jail, and then, well, if that didn't work, let's kill them.
Hello, this is Dr. Ned Hallowell, and welcome to Distraction. Today we have a very special episode. We're going to be talking about the subject of trauma, but with a very special guest, a man I only met recently, but I feel as if I've known him my whole life. I met him because the woman who works for him reached out to me because he and I share a common bond in that we both had very difficult childhoods, and there's actually a way of quantifying difficult childhoods. It's a special score called ACEs. It stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences Score. And it's a compilation of 10 difficult events in childhood, like divorce or abuse or incarceration. And a score of 4 or higher is considered to be predictive of a very difficult life, short life, unsuccessful life, early death, alcoholism, divorce, marginalized, depressed, etc. Don't do well if you have a score of 4 ACEs or higher. Well, it turns out I have a score of 8, and Joe can tell you his score if he chooses to. But we both have high scores. We both had tough childhoods, and the woman in charge of his book, which is called Broken Like Everybody Else, reached out to me, and suddenly I found this compadre, this fellow traveler, and we had both survived, and not only survived but thrived, and it was really a very poignant moment for me. Here I'm 68, and Joe can tell you how old he is if he wants to, having come through difficult times, and we were both excited to kind of share with the world that difficult times don't have to end up the way the ACEs people say statistics predict they will. And we got to talking about that, and we'll share some of that conversation with you in today's session. But the upshot of it is that while we all know how crippling and devastating childhood trauma can be, it's also heartening to know that it doesn't have to spell doom for the rest of your life for people, and that's what we're here to talk about today. So it's a great pleasure to introduce my new friend all the way from Florida, Joe Del Cueto, to my podcast Distraction. Thank you, Joe, so much for joining me today.
Oh, thank you, Ned. It's a pleasure to meet a rock star in the field that I have now come to be so passionate about. It's my pleasure, and yes, I would be more than happy to share my ACE scores, my age, et cetera, et cetera. But it's my pleasure to be here.
So you are how old now?
So I'm 60 years old.
Okay, and I'm 68, so we're roughly the same generation.
Okay, we're contemporary, yes.
And I believe you have me beat in the ACEs score.
Well, it's kind of a one of those intriguing statistics that I'm not sure whether we should be crying or proud of the fact that we beat those numbers. But yes, I scored 9 out of 10 ACEs, which, as Dr. Hallowell was talking about, anything above 4 puts you in a danger zone. Anywhere in the 6 range is pay careful attention, and anything above a 6, pay special attention to. Yeah, Ned having scored 8 and me scoring 9. Yeah, our odds are very, very slim to even come out alive, much less make it to age 60 and lead productive, almost predictable lives.
And you're now married 40 years, am I right?
Yes, I've been married close to 40 years, 38 years to the same woman, one marriage. I attribute my making it through the river to my wife, whom I met when I was barely 22 years old and dropping out of college. So yeah, it's been a pretty amazing ride.
And you're now the CEO of a successful high-tech company, correct?
Yeah. I founded a company now 22 years ago. After successfully being in the Spanish television field, I started in Miami, Florida, then opened offices in New York and in Boston and actually Mexico City and Puerto Rico and whatnot. Kind of did really well with it. And at this stage of our lives, yes, the company is based in Central Florida. We're in a suburb of Orlando called Winter Park, Florida. And we work with big data and all the, as my interns call it, creepy marketing stuff that is all the insights that get obtained through digital marketing with very, very high precision levels, where we know exactly who we're talking to, what device they're using, where they are, their location, and everything chapter and verse about their lives. It's kind of intriguing. Yes, that's what I do for a living.
Yeah, well, it's really remarkable. And you have how many children?
I have 3 children. I have, thank God, 3 successful, all in their own rights, children. 38-year-old in Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina. A 34-year-old in Miami, Florida, who works in a Spanish TV network. My oldest daughter works in the largest chemical company in the world. She's a global marketing manager for BASF, based out of Raleigh-Durham. And then my son is near you, Ned. My son is in Rhode Island. And he's a self-described wanderer. God bless his soul, because if you can at least know what you are, that's a good thing.
Well, shall we tell the listeners of Distraction the idea we cooked up this morning?
I love it. I love it. Absolutely.
Well, you put 2 ADD guys on the telephone together and let us brainstorm, and sure enough, we came up with an idea. You want to lead the way?
Sure. I think the common or uncommonality of our meeting each other was the fact that we, 2 people from 2 different backgrounds, have these high A scores, and yet they managed to pull off a rather very successful career. I wouldn't even say rather, a very successful career in our own fields. I mean, you as a psychiatrist and author and really the one leading the charge, and me in my own world, without a college degree, basically dropping out of college, but yet managing to pull off a 30-some year career in media and marketing on an international scale. So the common thread being 2 highly traumatized yet successful people. I think the first thing that came amongst us was the thread of, wow, we did beat the odds, didn't we? Because the odds of having such a high incidence of ACE markers in your life, the likelihood of success is very low. I think we came up with you came up with an intriguing name. I'm already in. I'm designing a logo for it. Turnaround Project, because it really has in mind all of those children and young adults that have gone through the horrors, because there's no other word for it, the horrors of neglect and abuse to a point where they have actually been even extracted from their homes by law enforcement, and they are under the care of the state or nonprofits that manage the state's business of foster care. And after they age out of foster care, they're basically set loose right back in the same street that they came from. So I think our core project is really finding more people like you and I that come from all walks of life that have actually beat the odds, and have them share their stories and perhaps even share how they themselves were helped by others and how they themselves continue to help others.
Absolutely. And you know this world well because you serve on the board that oversees these folks, right? You what is the name of the organization?
I serve on the board of an organization called Community-Based Care of Central Florida. And we have about 3,000 children under our care. Now, if you come to think of it as context, this is only 3 counties in Central Florida, and you have 3,000 children of all ages, basically 18 and under or 21 and under. But let's call it 21 and under our care annually. That's a massive amount of kids in foster care.
Yeah.
Or being adopted.
Yeah, and they're placed in homes where the parents are paid a certain amount of money to take care of the kids?
There's a number of options in foster care, and adoptions being, let's call it, our less troublesome task, because it's the young kids that, babies and very young toddlers that for X, Y, or Z reason, typically it tends to be mental health and substance abuse, and typically those go hand in hand. Causes, the state has to remove those children, and the parents recognize how ill or broken they are, and they basically give up their parental rights. So therefore, we then have a task of finding their what we call forever family. So we go out and we adopt and find them homes where they're loved and they grow up healthy and normal lives. Where it starts becoming a little tricky and is where I think you and I seem to want to focus on as well is it's when you enter the teenager population. When the teenager is extracted, the options are less. Nobody really wants to adopt a teenager. Option one is to place them in a foster family. A foster family is nothing more than basically kind-hearted human beings that open their home for temporary care of these kids, because they're not really adopting them. They're basically taking care of these kids for 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, it could be up to a year, but they're just kind of helping to stop the real crisis of being removed. And then the vast majority of those, we don't have a lot of those homes because it's a hard job to be a foster parent, and you have these random kids coming in and out of your home, and you get attached to them, and then you disattach. It's heartbreaking as well as it's a heavy lift. But then the vast majority of them get placed in what we call group homes, which is now these are professionally run for-profit, or in some cases non-profit, but it's one of those hybrids, non-profit but yet for-profit. We pay them to take care of anywhere from 8 to 12 kids. It's my least favorite option, and unfortunately is where most of the teen population live, in group homes. Right.
And so they're in this pretty undesirable setting.
Yeah, it's undesirable. Be mindful to how I call them, but because then they're well-intentioned human beings and they're professional that run these things. And when we are carefully scrutinizing them, they have caseworkers,
right,
surprise visits. We have hotlines where the kids can call in or text or email us 24 hours a day in case anything shady is going on. But it's not a loving setting. I mean, they try to be as loving as they can, but it's shift workers. So
right.
You have, a morning, an afternoon, an evening shift, and, they take care of them, but they're kind of a holding pen with 12 broken kids.
But then, as you told me this morning, the worst is yet to come, because when they age out, whether it's 18 or 21, then they're basically homeless.
Yeah, that's a really sad part of this. Once they age out, they really are on their own. I mean, and even though we have tried giving them certain basic life skills, driving and cooking and how to, their basic hygiene and whatnot, and clearly we've been taking care of their health, because this entire foster care system in the United States is funded by the federal government. There's never enough resources, there's never enough money, and there's never enough people to get it done, because it's hard work. But once they age out, the statistics are just god awful. I mean, and if I can share with you and your audience some of the statistics, I mean they're heart wrenching.
Tell me.
So if we look at just teens in foster care in the United States, you're looking at a population of roughly 500,000. Now,
wow.
Think of this for a second. That I want to say one out of every 10 abuse cases actually ends up in foster care. Wow. Foster care is a very, very last option. Everything is tried. I mean, correcting the family conditions, counseling for the family, drug counseling, finding family members. We try everything. We throw the kitchen sink at it,
right,
to not bring them into the system. Right. But then, so if you have 500,000 foster kids, give or take, in our system in the United States, if you just take girls, 50% of the girls in foster care are pregnant by the time they're 19. Wow. It's babies having babies, and with no life skills and no net. So here we go in the perpetuation of that cycle of poverty and abuse. Right. So if you look at the prison population in the United States, 74%. That is a nutty number. 3/4 of that population has been through the foster care system.
3/4 of the prison population has been in foster care.
Yep.
Wow.
Now here's another mind-numbing one. So within 2 years, so let's say we have Bobby in our care, and Bobby is this wonderful kid, and we've just bent over backwards. And Bobby turns 18, 19, whenever his time is for the process of disengaging with us. 50% of the Bobbies of the world, after they leave our care, 50% end up in jail within 2 years.
Within 2 years?
They're in prison. Within 2 years, 50% of our population are incarcerated once they've aged out. These are completely unacceptable numbers. I mean, how can we live as a society in the richest country in the world, and what are we doing? We're taking our most broken and vulnerable assets, and let's just hurry up and build more jails, because there's more and more of those kids coming in.
But another sizable percentage are addicted or dead.
Oh yeah. And many times it's and addicted and in jail, and yes, of course, they end up dead. Actually, the last and so the most harrowing statistic for me is if you take the death row population in the United States, 80% of that comes from the foster youth program. So
80%. Wait a minute. Say that 80%.
80 of the foster youth on death row, former foster youth on death row. 80%. So it's like, let's throw them in jail, and then, well, if that didn't work, let's kill them. I don't know, Ned. I mean, this one is, I'm not smart enough to wrap my head around this other than to put my combat boots on and say, okay, we need to start.
Well, so that's why we want to do Project Turnaround. We are bold or stupid enough to say, we think we could actually take a stab at doing it differently.
Yeah.
And, try to get them into trade school, get them into junior college, get them into, and both you and I share the belief it all comes down to finding some kind of connection, be it a mentor or a coach or the right girlfriend or the right boyfriend or the right, the right job, the right place where they can feel useful,
Yes, and actually, I love the fact that we are planting at least planting our flag for starters in that one place, that one blind spot that the entire child welfare system has, which is post foster care. Okay, we're done with foster care. Now what?
Right.
That now what is a blind spot in our society, and it's a huge blind spot.
Right.
Given that I myself suffered a very complicated upbringing. I mean, I should have been a foster care. I am an abused child. 9 aces. You don't get 9 aces out of anything easy.
Right.
I was abused. In Catholic school. I was. My mother unfortunately was an opioid addict. She tried killing me on multiple occasions. Those are exactly the points of inflection where foster care kicks in.
Yeah.
I mean, if you show up with, getting stitched up in the middle of the night with no good explanation, there's going to be an open investigation immediately.
Yeah.
I didn't have that luxury. There wasn't such a thing when I was growing up and where I was growing up. So perhaps that's why my affinity to this group is so high. My empathy is so high because I can feel their pain. And when I reach out to them, within 5 minutes, and you see through they look tough and they sound tough.
Right.
They almost sound and look and feel and smell scary.
Right.
But 5 minutes in, you go, they're just kids.
Yeah.
They're scared. They're more scared of me than I am of them.
Right.
And you need to at least think about, would they be open to having a discussion? Would they be open to having a conversation about turning their lives around once foster care ends? Because the one thing I promise you is they know that foster care does come to an end.
Yeah.
And as much as while they're in group homes, and I don't blame them, I mean, they say, get me the heck out of here.
Right.
They know what's out there. They know where they're going. They're going to the street.
Yeah.
How much better could the street be?
Yeah.
Or, as I was sharing with you this morning, God forbid, they could be going right back to the same place that hurt them.
Yeah.
And really, really terrible things can happen.
Yeah.
Like further abuse or even death.
Yeah.
We know of cases where they've gone right back to the parents that hurt them, and the children have become assassinated once they got to their crazy parents' home.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that I'm super excited that we're planting our flag in that blind spot of child welfare.
And and like I say, maybe we're just stupid, but I totally believe we can have an impact because because you work it and you've lived it, that the need is there and it can't be much worse than it is right now. I don't think we can make it any worse.
No.
And I think we have a darn good chance of making it better.
Yes.
Project Turnaround. I don't see how we can't, but make it somewhat better.
I couldn't agree more, Ned. And as we were discussing this morning, I actually think that we have some really interesting wind behind our sails here for Project Turnaround.
Totally. All these traumatized people, whose talent goes to waste, end up jailed, dead, addicted. I mean, it's you and I lucked out, and so let's make it so that people don't have to rely on luck. Well, we're going to take a whack at it, aren't we? Project Turnaround, if nothing else, we'll give it a try.
Something tells me it's going to be wildly successful because even in some small ecosystem that I'm currently operating, where I'm serving on the board of this Central Florida initiative, I know a few super success stories where they had horrific lives. They went through the foster care program and already came out the other end and came back to help other foster kids. So they actually work with our organization. To me, that's such an inspiration.
Well, that's the thing, Joe. We'll have the most passionate warriors. So I'm just so excited. I can't tell you. I hope listeners are getting excited. Get Joe's book. He's going to have it re-released, but it's broken like everybody else. Go to Joe's website, Jose del Cueto, JosedelCueto.com. He's an amazing man, truly an amazing man. He's a gift to this world, and I'm so lucky to have found him, teamed up with him. Our idea, Project Turnaround, is it's embryonic right now, but I'm quite certain with Joe's incredible marketing skills, we'll turn it into something that really will create a new paradigm for this group of people that are, as you said, they're in one of society's blind spots. They're just deposited into jail basically, and or homelessness, and we want to give them a better option, and it's a treat to have met you, and a treat to be looking forward to working with you. So, my new friend, I'll be in touch with you, and thank you for joining us on Distraction.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's my pleasure and my honor.
Bless you, Joe. Well, that's it for today. Distraction is produced by Collision, the podcast division of CRN International. Collisions, podcasts for curious people. Our editor is Chris Latham. Our producer is the wonderfully creative Sarah Gurton. And our Sultan of Swing/recording engineer is Pat Keogh.
The episode you just heard was made possible by our sponsor, Landmark College, the college for students who learn differently, offering comprehensive supports for students with ADHD and other learning differences, both on campus and online. Learn more at lcdistraction.org.